Hello everyone. Welcome to my Heart Talks. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon. Because every story I share here is not just a story. It's someone's truth. A heartbeat that once broke and then learned to live again. Now listen. This is my truth. The night that changed everything, my 56th birthday. The night I lost my husband, my home, and a part of myself. It was a quiet morning. I woke up to the sound of birds and the soft sunlight falling through my window. Physics. I whispered to myself. I smiled not because of the number but because I was grateful for surviving all these years, all the storms. I made myself tea, placed it near my window, and looked around the house that I had turned into a home with my own hands. Every curtain, every photo frame, every color on those walls, they carried pieces of me. My husband, Fahad, had been distant for months. He hardly talked, hardly smiled. But I thought maybe today, my birthday, would melt the ice between us. I cooked his favorite breakfast. Omelette with green chilies, brown bread, and tea just the way he liked, strong, no sugar. When he came to the table, I smiled. Good morning. He barely looked up from his phone. Just said, and sipped his tea. That it felt heavier than silence. But I told myself, it's okay. Maybe he's stressed. I wanted to make that evening special. I had planned a small birthday dinner at home. Close friends, neighbors, a few relatives. I even called my daughter Aisha and my son Hassan, but both said they might be late due to work. I wore the pink silk sari Fahad had gifted me 10 years ago on our anniversary. I looked in the mirror and smiled sadly. You're still beautiful, even if no one says it anymore. The house smelled of flowers, candles flickered on the table, and soft music filled the room. I waited for him to come home. The guests started arriving one by one, laughter, chatter, warm hugs. Everyone asked, "Where's Fahad?" And I kept saying, "He's on the way." Inside though, my heart whispered, "Please come soon, just once, make me feel like your wife again." 8:15 p.m. It was 8:15 p.m. I was standing near the cake when the doorbell rang. Finally, he's here, I thought. But when I opened the door, my smile froze. There he was, my husband, holding another woman's hand. She was younger, beautiful, dressed in red. He didn't even look ashamed. He walked in as if nothing was wrong. As if it was normal. The room went silent. The music stopped. All the laughter died. My friends looked at me, confused, pitying. I stood still, my hands trembling. "Fahad," I whispered. Who is she?" He looked at me coldly. "Don't create drama, Nyla. She's with me. From now on, she lives here too." My knees felt weak. I looked around the room. Everyone staring, my world crashing. This is my house," I said, voice shaking. He smirked. "Was your house? Everything's in my name now." Then, in front of all the guests, he grabbed my arm and pushed me toward the door. I stumbled, nearly falling. Someone gasped. Someone tried to stop him, but he shouted, "Stay out of my family matter." And then, he slammed the door. Right there outside my own house. On my 56th birthday. I stood barefoot, holding nothing but my broken pride. I walked down the street, crying, shaking, trying to understand how love can turn this cruel. I sat on the bench near the corner of our lane. The night breeze was cold, but not colder than his words. People passed by. No one looked. No one knew that a woman had just been thrown out of her own house, not by a stranger, but by the man she called husband. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Why, God? What did I do wrong? Was loving him my only mistake?" And that night was just the beginning. The next day, I would discover the papers he had forged, the lies he had told, and the woman who had already been living in my home behind my back. And I kept saying, "He's on the way." Inside though, my heart whispered, "Please come soon, just once, make me feel like your wife again." 8:15 p.m. It was 8:15 p.m. I was standing near the cake when the doorbell rang. Finally, he's here, I thought. But when I opened the door, my smile froze. There he was, my husband, holding another woman's hand. She was younger, beautiful, dressed in red. He didn't even look ashamed. He walked in as if nothing was wrong. As if it was normal. The room went silent. The music stopped. All the laughter died. My friends looked at me, confused, pitying. I stood still, my hands trembling. "Fahad," I whispered. Who is she?" He looked at me coldly. "Don't create drama, Nyla. She's with me. From now on, she lives here too." My knees felt weak. I looked around the room. Everyone staring, my world crashing. This is my house," I said, voice shaking. He smirked. Was your house? Everything's in my name now. Then, in front of all the guests, he grabbed my arm and pushed me toward the door. I stumbled, nearly falling. Someone gasped. Someone tried to stop him, but he shouted, "Stay out of my family matter." And then, he slammed the door. Right there outside my own house. On my 56th birthday. I stood barefoot, holding nothing but my broken pride. I walked down the street, crying, shaking, trying to understand how love can turn this cruel. I sat on the bench near the corner of our lane. The night breeze was cold, but not colder than his words. People passed by. No one looked. No one knew that a woman had just been thrown out of her own house, not by a stranger, but by the man she called husband. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Why, God? What did I do wrong? Was loving him my only mistake?" And that night was just the beginning. The next day, I would discover the papers he had forged, the lies he had told, and the woman who had already been living in my home behind my back. It was a Sunday evening. The sky was gray, rain tapping on the window of my small apartment. I was making tea when someone knocked on the door. 3 loud knocks that made my heart freeze. When I opened it, he was standing there. Fahad, the same man who had humiliated me in front of everyone. But this time he looked calm, polite, even gentle. "Can I come in?" he said softly. For a moment my heart betrayed me. After all, this was the man I once loved. I stepped aside. "Come in." He looked around at the simple room, the small bed, the few utensils. Then he smiled faintly. "You really started a new life." I didn't answer. He sat down and said, "Nyla, I made mistakes. I was angry, I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you that day." For a second I wanted to believe him. But the image of that woman wearing my bangles flashed in my mind. So I just said quietly, "You didn't mean to hurt me. You just destroyed me by accident?" He looked down. I was under pressure. I didn't know what I was doing. He talked for almost an hour, pretending to be guilty, speaking softly, even calling me Nyla John like before. He told me he wanted to make things right, that he had ended things with the other woman, that I wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to forgive him, another part wanted to scream. But before I could respond, he said something that changed everything again. He leaned forward and said, "There's a property issue. If you could just sign a few papers to clear things legally, we both can move on peacefully." And there it was, the truth behind his visit. Not love. Not regret. Just another plan. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Fahad, I may have been foolish once, but not anymore." He frowned. "Don't act stubborn. You know you still need me." I stood up. "No, Fahad. You needed me. To clean your mess, to build your home, to hold your pride. Not anymore." He slammed the table, his old anger returning. "You'll regret this," he shouted. I stayed silent, shaking but firm. He stormed out, and once again I was left with silence. But this time it wasn't weakness. It was strength. That night I couldn't sleep. Every word he said kept echoing. How could someone I gave my life to turn into a stranger with no conscience? I remembered the early days. Our wedding, our first small house, the nights we laughed over burnt food. I remembered how he used to say, "No matter what happens, I'll always stand by you." And now he stood against me. I cried, not because I missed him, but because I missed the woman I used to be before he broke her. The next morning I did something I never thought I'd do. I joined a small community center as a cooking instructor. The same hands that once cooked silently for him, now cooked to help other women earn their living. The first day when I taught 5 young girls how to bake bread, one of them said, "Auntie, you cook like love has no bitterness." And I smiled. Maybe that's what healing looks like. Each day I woke up stronger. Each day the pain faded a little more. I started saving money, decorating my small space, and even laughing again. A few months later, our court hearing came. He sat across from me, the same proud man, still trying to look powerful. But this time I wasn't scared. My lawyer handed the judge every document. Proof of forgery, false signatures, illegal transfer. The judge looked at him and said, "Mr. Fahad, everything she built you took unjustly. You will return what rightfully belongs to her." For the first time his face went pale. I didn't smile. I just closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God." Justice didn't erase my pain, but it gave me back my dignity. Sometimes the ones who destroy you also teach you how strong you can be without them. That day, I walked out of the court not as a wife, not as a victim, but as a woman who had finally freed herself. But my story wasn't over. Because the other woman, the one who took my place, was about to come to me, begging for help. It was a quiet afternoon. I had just finished my cooking class and was sitting by the window sipping tea. The sky was heavy with clouds, the kind of gray that reminds you of lonely evenings. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I froze. It was her. The woman who came to my birthday with my husband. The woman who had laughed while I cried. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from tears. For a few seconds we both stood there silent. Then she whispered, "Please, can I come in?" Every part of me wanted to shut the door. But something, maybe the part of me that once understood pain, stopped me. I stepped aside. "Come in." She sat on the edge of the chair, trembling. "Nyla, I know I'm the last person you ever wanted to see." I stayed quiet. She took a deep breath, her voice breaking. "I didn't know what kind of man he really was. He told me you were gone, that you were sick and cruel, that he was lonely." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was younger, yes, but broken in ways I recognized. The same eyes that once looked at me with pride now looked at me with shame. She continued, "He used me just like he used you. He took my savings, my jewelry. And then when I confronted him, he hit me. He left. And now he's with another woman." Her words cut through the room like a cold wind. For a moment I saw my past in her. The same mistake, the same heartbreak. I whispered, "You believed his lies just like I did." She nodded, crying, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know the truth until it was too late." We sat together for hours, two women who had been fooled by the same man. The air between us wasn't filled with anger anymore, but with silence, understanding, and grief. She said, "He told me he married you out of pity, that you were too old to be loved." My chest tightened, but I smiled softly. "And yet, it was this old woman who taught him what love was." She said, "He told me he married you out of pity, that you were too old to be loved." My chest tightened, but I smiled softly. "And yet, it was this old woman who taught him what love was." She looked at me, tears streaming. "How are you so calm?" I said. "Because I survived what you're surviving now. Because I know crying won't rebuild me, only courage will." That night, when she left, she held my hands and said, "You are stronger than I ever imagined. I hope one day I can be like you." When she walked away, I closed the door gently. Not in anger, but in closure. That night, I sat near my small lamp and thought about how strange life is. The woman who once took my place had now come to me for help. And I didn't hate her anymore. As I realized, he was the disease. We were both victims. For years, I carried the poison of hatred inside me. But that night, I let it go. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot. It just meant I no longer carried his shadow with me. I whispered to myself, maybe this is what real freedom feels like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of peace. A few months later, I received a phone call from a hospital. The voice said, "Ma'am, are you related to Mr. Fahad?" My heart skipped. Yes, I was his wife. "He's been admitted. Severe chest pain. He's asking for you." I sat quietly for a moment. The man who once threw me out of my house was now calling for me. My hand shook as I held the phone. Should I go? Should I see him? Part of me said no, but another voice, the one that once loved deeply, whispered go. And I did. When I entered that hospital room, and our eyes met after so long, everything I had buried came rushing back. He looked weak, pale, older, but his eyes still carried that same pride. He said softly, "Nyla, you came." I stood by his bedside and said, "Yes, because I still remember who I am, not what you made me." When I entered that room, I could barely recognize him. The man who once filled every corner of my life now looked like a shadow. Wires ran across his chest, machines beeped softly, and for the first time he wasn't angry, he was afraid. He looked at me, eyes heavy with guilt. "Nyla," he whispered, "I didn't think you'd come." I pulled a chair beside his bed. "I didn't come for you, Fahad," I said quietly. "I came because I needed to end this chapter, in peace." He tried to smile, but his eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong," he said. "I destroyed everything, you, the house, our family. I thought love was control. I thought I'd be happier without you." His voice broke. But that woman left. They all left. I sat silently, listening to the confession I had once begged for. He reached for my hand, trembling. I don't deserve forgiveness, he said. And I whispered, no you don't. But I'll still give it, not for you but for me. He looked at me confused. Continued, I can't carry this pain anymore. You took my home but you won't take my peace. I forgive you, Fahad. Not because you changed but because I did. Tears rolled down his face. He said softly, you were always stronger than me. I smiled faintly. I was never strong. I just survived everything you thought would break me. For a moment, silence filled the room. The kind of silence that feels like an ending. The next morning, I returned to the hospital. But his bed was empty. He was gone. No dramatic farewell, no last letter, just emptiness. I stood there quietly, looking at the white sheet folded at the end of his bed. A nurse handed me his wedding ring. The same ring he once slid onto my finger with promises of forever. I held it tightly, whispered a prayer and walked away. Outside the sun was rising. After years of darkness, I finally felt light again. It wasn't joy, it was freedom. Months passed. I continued teaching at the community center, helping women learn to earn, to speak, to stand. Every time I saw them smile after their first paycheck, I felt something new bloom inside me, pride. One evening, we were celebrating a student's success. Someone asked, Auntie, what do you want from life now? I thought for a moment and smiled. I just want peace, and a home filled with kindness, not ownership. I had built a new house by then, small but warm, with plants, soft curtains, and no memories of pain. Sometimes I still look at my wedding photo and whisper, thank you for leaving, because losing you gave me myself. So, if you are listening to me right now, and you have been betrayed, abandoned, or broken, please remember this. No one has the power to erase you unless you give it to them. Love should never silence you. And forgiveness is not weakness. It's the loudest form of strength. I was thrown out of my house on my 56th birthday. But at 57 I walked into a new one. Alone but alive. And finally at peace. Thank you for listening to my story. If my words touched your heart, please subscribe to my Heart Talks. Because somewhere out there, another woman is fighting the same storm. And your one listen, one comment, one share might give her the courage to survive.